Let's start. So first of all, you need to understand what is meant by a data center. When we are discussing about the data center, you need to understand. So whenever we are discussing about the servers and all the things, you need to understand what is meant by a data center. Now, whenever you are working in a company, suppose you are working in an IT service company. First of all, you need to understand what are the works of this IT service company. So first of all, an AWS engineer or else a DevOps engineer, the main working roles of these candidates or else these employees are that, first of all, they need to have the basic understanding about any two clouds. Once they have the understanding about the cloud, then they are like an integration between development team and the operations team. Now here you need to understand development team and operation team. What is the main difference between them? Development team will develop the application depending upon the languages and all the things. So on the languages like Python, Java, any language, they will develop the application, and operations team will monitor and manage the application by deploying the application, by installing the application in a server. So these are the two teams. Now the DevOps engineer is an integration or also is a coordinator between these two teams. So he need to have the knowledge on both the technologies. It's like development technologies and as well as like operations technologies. Basically, he need to coordinate with both the teams. Now we will discuss about these concepts slowly, and later on we will get back to the topic. Now, when you see here, this is an IT service company. For example, there are so many IT service companies out there, like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, HCL, and there are so many IT service companies. The company which provides the services to the client. Which type of services? Information technology related services, compute technology related service companies. So all these companies will come under the IT service sector. So what will these companies will do? For example, there is a banking sector, or else there is a hospital, there are hospitals, and there are some of the institutions, and all like this, we will be having so many number of clients where they cannot develop the compute optimized applications. They cannot develop their computer applications. For example, if a hospital wants if a hospital wants an application, so inside the hospital we will not have any IT guys, so like IT engineers, or else a hospital cannot have developers. What is the necessity of having the developers inside the hospitals? So hospitals doesn't have the servers, of course. Back end, what is going to happen, I will tell you. For example, take an example, there is a hospital. Not only hospital, you can take any client. For example, there is a client who is providing a project to us. So this is a common term which you will hear in the IT industry. Whenever you go for an IT industry, I got a project from so and so client, so we don't have the projects right now. So what are these projects? These projects are nothing but, so there are some clients who are having non-IT background. There are some clients who doesn't have the non-IT background. Whenever they don't have the IT background, now what I can say, when they don't have the IT background, they have to approach to any IT service company. In the same manner, this client will approach to the IT service company for their application. So the client will approach to the IT service company for their application. Okay, so when the client arrives to the IT service company, what he is going to do, what the particular company is going to do is, they will demonstrate what are the requirements of that client. So if the client reaches to the IT service company, he will demonstrate clear-cut demonstration. He will provide a clear-cut demonstration that this is what I want. So in the same manner, depending upon the demonstration given, so the development team will do the research and development. They build the application. Suppose this is the development team. So what they are going to do, they will build the application. So app build will be done here. Okay, once the application is built, then the application will be forwarded towards, a team called as operations team. So here the operation team is nothing but the admin team, I can call that as an admin team, or also who can manage the servers. So the application will be moved towards the server. So server side, this is your ops team. Okay. So now this application will be deployed inside the servers. Here comes the AWS point of perspective. But anyways, as of now, we are discussing about the on-prem. Just concentrate on the on-prem. Now this ops means operations team. Now they are going to deploy the application, whatever developed by your development team. This application will be deployed inside your servers. Okay. Now, whatever the application that is deployed inside the server, with the help of networking team, they are going to connect this server to the network, and they will provide the services to the end users. Nothing but the users who are accessing, who are approaching to that particular application. Either it might, if at all it is a hospital, so they will provide the services to the hospital. If it is a banking application, they will provide the access to the customers who are having the accounts in that particular bank. Now if you are having a account inside SBI, you will access the internet banking. Now how you are going to access the application will be available inside a server. So this is how the IT service company will be working. Now, if you see here, if one client is there for the IT service company, so you can have a single server, but the companies will not have a single client. They will have enormous number of clients. They will have so many number of clients. For those number of clients, so if they want to install the application, if they want to provide the servers, if they want to provide the services to the clients, then one or two servers are not enough. So for that reason, they are going to create a facility. They are going to build a facility called as data center. So this data center will have huge number of servers, huge number of data storage equipments, so that they can store, they can provide the access for the application, they can store the data of application. So everything can be stored inside this facility, and that facility is called as data center. Now, if you see here, so whenever any IT service company wants to have a huge equipment, if they want to store a huge equipment, so how can they store the huge equipment? This is the second AWS class, and this is the second demo which you are listening. Okay. So what is this data center consist of? So in this data center, if you see here, okay. If you see here, this is the data center which you are accessing. Now, inside this data center, what you are going to have? First of all, you need to understand the types of servers. Depending upon the shape and structure of the servers, there are three types of servers. I can call them as form factors. Are you getting the point now? So as of now, what we have discussed, how client will approach the IT service company. When the client approaches the IT service company, how they are going to develop the application and how the application can be deployed inside the server. And now we are discussing about the data center. Is there any doubts here up to now, whatever we have gone through within this 10 minutes? Do you have any doubts? Response? Any doubts?
No doubt. Okay. Trying to understand.
Yeah, go on. Now, next, what we are going to do now here is, after that, after the configuration, now we need to understand what is meant by data center. Now, when we come back to the data center, first of all, inside the data center, what we can have. So inside a DC, I can call it as DC. So many IT service companies, they will call DC. What is this DC? DC is nothing but the data center. Inside this data center, you will have servers and storage equipment. So what is the storage? Actually, the storage consisting of three types of storages. One is DAS, NAS, and SAN. We will discuss about that when we go for the storages. DAS means directly attached to storage. NAS means network attached to storage. SAN means storage area network. We'll discuss about that. So these types of storages are available. And then inside that DC, you will have networking equipment. Network equipment like routers, switches, Like this, you will have the router switches and cables. All these things are available inside the inside a DC data center. Now, when we come back to the servers, depending upon the shape and structure of that particular server, there are three types of servers. One is tower server. Second one is rack server. And the third one is blade server. These are the three types of form factors that we are having inside the server. So whenever we are considering any server, so you cannot consider like only a single type of server will be available. There are three types of servers. One is tower, rack, and blade server. How this shape of the server will be looking like? If I have to show you about the tower servers, they will look as similar as your CPU. Whatever the cabinet that you are having, they will look like a your desktop CPU. So what I will do, tower server. If you see here, these are the tower servers, whichever you are looking here. These are looking like the same CPUs that you are having, but it can hold a huge number of CPUs, a huge number of RAMs, a huge amount of RAM, large size of RAMs, and a huge amount of data inside this. But conventional desktop is different from the tower servers. Whatever the desktops that you are using, those are not equivalent to your tower servers. If you want to convert them, you can convert. But as of now, this is how the tower servers will be looking like. And the next one is rack servers. So if you see the rack server will be looking like this, like just like a what I can say, your wardrobe racks, how it is going to look like in the same manner. You will have a rack. This is how a rack will be looking like. Inside this rack, what you are going to, if you see here, this particular image will give you the clear picture of how the rack servers will be looking like. So you will have the rack. This is the rack where all the rack servers are mounted. This is how your rack server will be like looking like. These are the HP rack servers. This is how the rack servers will be looking like. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to get the rack server and we will mount that rack server to the rack. So like this, inside the data center, we will have some thousands of racks are available. And into that racks, we are going to install the rack servers. Not only rack server, if you see here, the third type, which I have said you, I said you about the blade servers. So this is how your blade server will be looking like. These are called as blades. So whatever the engineer is inserting, or else whatever the engineer is removing or inserting, this is called as a blade. So nothing but inside this, you will have the CPU and RAM. So each and every blade will have a CPU and RAM, and you will have the connectivity towards your monitor and all things. Now, this is how a blade server will be looking like. And whatever the case that you are seeing, wherever these blades are installed, these are called this case, or else this particular box is called as chassis. So inside this chassis, we are going to install our blade servers. Now, these are the three types of form factors that we are having. If you see here, where we are installing the tower servers, we can have the tower servers inside the rack, we can have the rack servers, and we can have the blade servers. And if you see here, this is how this is how your cabling can be done inside the rack. So it is completely the structured cabling which we have to maintain. I will show you that. But as of now, when you go back to the data center, inside the data center, you will have three types of servers, as we have discussed about this. So if you consider this facility, this box, or else this is as a data center facility, inside this data center, you will have the racks. Okay. And you will have so many number of racks, and each and every rack will be interconnected with the network. So each and every rack will be connected through the network, so that the communication from one rack will have the communication to the another rack. Whatever the servers that are present inside one rack will have the communication with the another rack. So inside this rack, you will have the physical servers. So this is a physical server. Like that, you can have 20 to 25 racks inside a rack server. Sorry, you can have 20 to 25 cabinets. Inside those cabinets, you can install your physical servers like this. Okay. and all the physical servers are interconnected with each other, so that from one physical server to the another physical server, you can make the communication. So this is about your data center. This is how your data center will be looking like. So in the back end, what you can have here is, in the back end, what you can have for each and every physical server, if I have to show you that. Server. So yeah, if you see this, this is the front end and rear view of your rack server, one of the rack server. This is the front end and rear view of your rack servers. So be very clear with this. If you see, this is how the front side will be looking like, and this is how your backside of the server will be looking like. And here, whatever these, what I can say, these are called as hard disk base. You can open this and you can install your hard disk inside the rack. And if you see here you are having so many ports, and these ports are called as LAN port, or else I can simply call them as a network port. Now, what is going to happen here? From this port, I will show you the networking cable. Network, I think everybody knows very similar about this, but who doesn't know about these networking cables? I just want to show them. So if you see here, this is how your networking cable, Ethernet cable, will be looking like. Now, one port of this server, any port of this server, so you are going to connect a networking cable to any port of this server, and you will be connecting to the another port in the another server, which means that, so if you think this is one of the HP Gen 10 server from the back end, so what you are going to do, you can connect your cable, your networking cable, to the one of the port, and from that you will be connecting to the another port in the another server, so that both will have the communication. One server can have the communication with the another server. This is how we are going to make the connection, so that each and every physical server will be in contact, in communication with the another server. So this is this is the thing which happens in the data center. Now, inside these physical servers, now comes the point here, inside all these physical servers, so we are going to install the virtual machines. So we can have the virtualization, and inside that we will install the virtual machines. What is the necessity of the virtual machine here? This is the point you need to understand. So here you are having a VM, and there will be so many VMs that are installed inside your servers. Like that, you will be having so many VMs. So these are all the VMs in the sense virtual machines. I can simply call them as virtual machines or virtualization containers, which will store your applications. Simply, I can call them as virtual machines. Now, inside this virtual machines, I will deploy the applications. Anyways, coming back to this. So what is this virtualization? So when you go back to the configuration, here you need to understand virtualization. Virtualization means, see, I am having a physical server. So for example, I am having a physical server. How many applications I can deploy inside a physical server? So depending, when you go back to the olden days, if you are having a physical server, it is capable of maintaining 1 or 2 applications. So we can install an application. Inside that we can install a database, and inside that we can run, or else we can run this server. But if you see that the server will be having very high capacity, you need to be very clear that any device, if at all it is receiving the data or else it is processing the data, what are the basic components that each and every compute device will have? What are the basic components that each and every computing device, computer, server, or else mobiles also, what are the basic components, basic resources?
RAM and hard disk storage device.
Exactly. The first thing is CPU, RAM, and hard disk. For example, if at all, mute yourself. If at all the server is having 4 CPU, 64 GB of RAM, and somewhere like storage, I can tell you that all the servers will not have the internal storage like your computers. However, the computers are having the hard disk. All the hard disks are connected to the cabinet inside the cabinet itself, but in the servers, in the data centers, the storage will not be connected inside the servers. So all the storage will be available inside the network, which means that there will be a separate case, and this is called as SAN, storage area network, so that all the hard disks are present inside this storage area network, so that my server will be connected to the sandbox. So whatever the data that I want, I can retrieve the data from that particular sandbox. So you don't need to worry about the storage, but you have to be more concentrating on this resources like CPU and RAM. Now, if you see the physical server here, I am having only single physical server. Inside that, I have deployed an application, a web application, which requests about somewhere like 4 GB of RAM and 1 CPU. And here you are having a database which requests of somewhere like 16 GB of RAM and somewhere like 2 CPU to process that, or else 1 CPU is more than enough. So if these are the requirement, if you see here, so this is what a server requests. But my physical server, if you see here, my physical server is having, what are the resources that physical server is having? 64 GB of RAM. So if only application, whatever the application and database that I have configured, it is occupying only 20 GB of RAM space. But what about remaining 44 GB of RAM space in olden days? I am not talking nowadays. In the olden days, when you go back to the 1990s at that particular time, what about the remaining 44 GB of RAM space? It is completely not used. So the optimized usage of your servers are not going to happen, which means that the resources are not fully used. So to overcome this problem, what we have done when we introduced a particular concept called as virtualization. What is this virtualization? You can have your entire physical equipment. So I am having a very big server. Inside this server, I am going to install a software. I am going to install an operating system. Virtualization is of two types. One is hosted virtualization and the other one is bare metal virtualization. So first of all, we will discuss about the bare metal virtualization. So what is this virtualization? First, you need to understand. Virtualization, in the sense, the name itself indicating that it's simple as imagination, or else it's like not existing servers, but we can store the data and everything in the virtual machines also, or else nowadays whatever the data is stored, everything is stored in the virtual machines only. So first of all, I need to give you a basic understanding about virtualization. Let us go back. So if you see here, virtualization, what is meant by virtualization? If you have a very good understanding about that, it will be very easy to understand the cloud computing. Virtualization is a process that allows for most efficient utilization of your physical computer hardware. So virtualization uses the software to create an abstract layer over the computer hardware, and that allows the hardware elements of single computer, processor, memory, storage to be divided into multiple virtual computers. So you need to understand virtualization uses software to create a layer. So it is going to create a layer over the hardware. So in general, you will have processor, RAM, and storage. So this hardware, with the help of the software which we have installed, virtualization software which we have installed, this virtualization software is going to divide my hardware. Now, what is going to happen here? Now, for example, this is my laptop. Inside my laptop, I am having somewhere like 24 GB of RAM and one CPU, which is 3.2 gigahertz. For example, I am saying, and somewhere like 500 GB of hard disk is there. Now, with the help of these equipment, whatever I am having, I am not going to use entire resources which I am having. So for that reason, what I am going to do here is, I am going to divide my resources into virtual machines. If I want to say any class, if I want to deliver any lecture, so I cannot use my physical equipment or else physical computer. Now what I will do, I have installed a virtualization software. Inside this virtualization software, what I am going to do here is, I will install my own operating system. Whatever the operating system I want, I will install that. And what I can do whenever I install this, if you see the processes, so if you see the performance here, slowly the RAM is getting increased. See here, the CPU is increased and the RAM is increased. Why? Because my virtualization is utilizing my physical resources. So whatever the virtual machine that I have installed, this virtual machine is utilizing the physical resources. So that is what it is saying in the definition also. When you see the definition, what they are saying, virtualization is a process that allows more efficient utilization of your physical computer hardware. Virtualization uses a software to create an abstract layer over the computer hardware that allows the hardware elements of a single computer to be divided into multiple virtual computers, commonly called as virtual machines. So in the same manner, now if you see here, my entire laptop, I am going to divide that into multiple virtual machines. Like, so I have created a server, and I want to give somewhere like if the application that I am deploying inside this virtualization or virtual machine is that requires 8 GB of RAM, and somewhere like one CPU is normal, and somewhere like 20 GB of hard disk. So what is going to happen? This server is going to get my hardware resources with the help of a software. So that is my virtual machine, or else any software. Like if I have to say in the server side, so there are Citrix Gen servers. You might have heard about the Citrix Gen virtual machines, VMware. So like that, you have heard about these softwares. What are these softwares are going to do? These softwares will divide the hardware, whatever the computer hardware, and those computer hardware will be divided into small virtual machines depending upon the user requirement. So I am going to create multiple virtual servers. So here I will have another virtual server, and I can divide this into multiple virtual servers depending upon your resources. If at all, if your RAM is 24 GB, and if you want to install a server beyond 24 GB, it will not be acceptable, which means that, for example, I have installed a server with 8 GB of RAM, and now I am going to install another server with somewhere like some 16 GB of RAM. Now the total RAM has been occupied. So it is not now if I want to install another server with some 8 GB of RAM, my hardware will not allocate the space. Why? Because the total RAM has been occupied. So that is the reason you need to be very clear that whatever the hardware resources that you are having, depending upon the hardware resources, you have to install your virtual machines. So what is the benefit that I am going to get whenever we are installing these virtual machines? The benefit is very simple. So if you want to migrate, if you want to move this virtual machine from one server to the another server, it is pretty easy to move. So you need to just copy the whatever the virtualization data is there. If you see here, virtual machines are installed inside my computer. When I go to the documents here, you can have the VMware virtual machines. Simply I can copy this entire folder, whatever the folder that I am having, I can copy this entire folder, and I will move this folder to the another server, another machine, so that I can use there also whatever the data stored inside this virtual machine. I can use that data there also. So this is the main utilization, and not only that, optimized utilization of hardware can be happened. In previous days, in good olden days, what is happening? The optimized usage of physical resources are not happening. To overcome this problem, I am going for the virtualization software. This is the base for your cloud computing technologies. So whatever the cloud that you are using, all the cloud service providers are utilizing the virtualization technology. Either it might be VMware or it might be Citrix Gen servers. There are so many virtualization technologies. So all the cloud, whatever the cloud that you are using, or else whatever the servers that are installing inside the cloud, all the servers are the virtual machines only. So in the same manner, when you go back to your data center, inside this data center, you will have the physical machines, and inside that you will install the virtual machines. And inside the virtual machines, you can install your applications. So whatever the applications that you are accessing, all these applications are installed inside the virtual machines. So this is how your application can be accessible by the end users. Got the point? Any doubts here up to now? Response, guys. So as of now,
So cloud, yeah.
Yeah,
So
go on.
maybe I'm wrong. So cloud technology use this virtualization concept to use the resources in efficient manner, right?
Yeah,
No, I'm just asking you. Okay.
of course, yes, they are going to utilize these virtualization to use the resources in the efficient manner. So in the cloud, whatever the AWS cloud or any service provider, they will have their own data centers. Inside the data centers,
Okay.
as I have shown you the structure, the same structure they are going to follow. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
So each AWS services has their own data center.
Yeah, every cloud service provider will have their own data centers.
Okay. Thank you.
Chaitanya,
Okay.
yeah, Chaitanya, one
Yeah.
question from my end. So let's say when you're doing this virtualization, right? So it will have some physical memory, okay, to support our, right? So then how our Azure or AWS supporting, horizontal scaling and vertical scaling?
Horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. So
Yeah.
we can increase the physical memory at any point of time. That is called as vertical scaling. For example, if you see here where the time of server is running, and if you see my system is running, that is what I understand from your question. If the server is having now, if at all, if I want to increase, depending upon your requirement, what I will do, that completely depends upon their software, whatever the backend software that they are using. Now, if you see here, I can increase the RAM capacity as well as I can decrease the RAM capacity. So as of now, my server is having 16 GB of RAM. So to increase that or to decrease that, I need to shut down the virtual machine. In the virtualization, whenever if you go to the cloud, if you want to increase any resources, you need to shut down. Okay, so so what is going to happen in the back end? That is completely the AWS responsibility. They are going to utilize some applications so that they can they can move the servers to the another physical server also. So that completely depends upon their application strategy. So vertical scaling can be happened. We can, so in the front end we know that vertical scaling can be happened, but what happens in the back end, that completely known by the AWS infrastructure developers itself. We don't know, so we can utilize the resources. We can increase the server capacity. We can make so many horizontal servers, like we can install so many servers for the same application in the front end. But what happens in the back end? What is the application that they are using? That can be known by only AWS infrastructure developers. We don't know what is happening in the back end. Okay, I hope you got the point. So we can understand only one process, that the front end applications, whatever we are using, the API that we are using, we can increase the server capacity as well as we can
Without
decrease
restart,
the
right?
server capacity.
Without a
No,
restart.
no, with shutdown only. Without shutdown, we cannot increase the server capacity. If you see here, let me log into my AWS console.
I have a question here. So let's
Yeah.
say, so the bandwidth, let's say we deployed an application that is on a festival side or big billion days, right? So the usage will be more. In that case,
Yep.
okay, when we are using a serverless or anything, right? It's automatically scaled application. Okay, the RAM or the physical memory, whatever it's required.
Auto scaling can be done for the horizontal scalings.
Mm-hmm.
Automatically, the servers can be deployed with the horizontal scaling, but vertical scaling, definitely you need to shut down the servers.
Okay, okay. Only for virtual scale we need to do.
Yeah, virtual scaling, we will discuss about that in the auto scaling groups. Don't worry. What is meant by virtual scaling and what is meant by horizontal scaling, we will discuss about that. Okay. So anyways, as per your doubt, so horizontal scaling can be automatically done. If at all, if the load is very enormous, then automatically the servers can be deployed. But if you want to increase the resources inside the server, which means vertical scaling, whatever we are discussing, vertical scaling means increasing the resources in the server. For that, definitely we need to shut down the server. Without shutting down the server, we cannot increase the capacity.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So coming back to the topic, we are discussing about the virtualization. So virtualization is the basic for your cloud computing. Without the virtualization concept, without virtualization, we cannot work on the servers. So that is what you need to understand first. So, but here the problem, again, coming back to this, whatever we are discussing, we are not completely into the cloud computing. We are into the on-premises only. When if you are having the data center, how you have to install the data center and all the things. But once you have installed the data center, what you can work, we will discuss about that. Just give me a moment, guys. Sorry guys, coming back to the concept. So this is what the concept that is going to use in the on-premises or else cloud infrastructure also. But when you come to the on-premises means if at all, if you are having a company, inside the company, you are having a data center, entire maintenance has to be done by the employees only. Just understand, just try to get the point here. If entire thing or else if the maintenance, data center maintenance has to be done by the employees, so you have to recruit the maintenance guys. If there is any server monitoring has to be done, then you have to recruit the server monitoring team. If the server maintenance, and you need to understand that each and every server will be undergoing for the hardware maintenance for every 5 years. So who is responsible for that? Obviously the company which is installed, which is giving you the servers. You have to give a quotation for them. You have to ask them for the maintenance. So you have to carry out by yourself manually. You have to do all the works, which is a very hectic task for me. Not only that, you need to check the networking configuration, whether the network is properly installed, or else if there are any disconnection, is there are any loops. Not only that, you need to check out the structured cabling also. What is meant by structured cabling here? Here, structured cabling in the sense, if you see here, this is how the networking cables will be looking like, and this is how it is connected to the servers and switches. Now here, there are some of the networking devices, those are called as switches. What is the main functionality of the switch? Now, if you are having so many servers and all the servers are having so many ports, and each and every server will be connected to a centralized device. In networking concept, each and every device will be connected to a centralized device to make the communication. That is called as a switch. Now, if you see here, first of all, we need to understand the structured cabling. So this is how the structured cabling will be looking like, which means each and every cable will be, this is called as a patch panel. Now, inside the rack, either you can install your switches, patch panels, or either any of the thing inside the racks. So now what is going to happen here? Each and every cable will be in a structured format. They will have the numbering system. So if you see here you can see that each and every cable will have a tag, and on the tag you will have a number, so that you can understand that this particular cable is coming from this port and connecting to a server. So which means if I have to show you in the diagram, for example, this is your physical server and this is another physical server, and there is one more like that. You will be having so many physical servers. If all the servers are interconnected, now what is going to happen? Each and every cable, whatever the connectivity cable you are having, this cable will have a numbering system, and those are happened through the tags. So the tag will give you the particular number. So this particular server is connected to this particular server, so that it will be very easy for you to understand that if there is any disconnection in the server, which server cable has been disconnected, so that you will be pretty easy for reconnecting the servers. But if the cabling is unstructured, what is meant by unstructured? If you see here, if the cables are thrown like this, then it is very difficult. Then that is a hell lot of thing for the network engineers or network admins. Why? Because if you see here, all the cables are thrown like this is called as an unstructured cabling. And I don't know, some of the data centers might have that. It will be very difficult for the network engineers and network admins to understand which cable is coming from which server, and which cable is connecting to the switch, which cable is connecting to the another server. So this will be very hectic task for them if the cable is unstructured. But if you come to the data center, inside the data center, everything will be configured in the structured manner. So the cabling should be done. So who has to do this cabling? Obviously, the network admins has to do the cabling. Obviously, the network engineers should have monitoring towards these networking configurations. And not only that, if I go back to the storage, SAN enclosures, I will simply go to the storage. I just want to show you. So this is how your SAN boxes will be looking like. If I have to show you, this is how your SAN storage will be looking like. Inside this SAN storage, if you see here, these are called as storage base. These are called as storage base. What is meant by a bay? Bay means wherever you install the hard disk, that is called as a bay. So I can show you SAN base, SAN storage. So if you see here, you can see that there is a opening type of thing. These are called as bays. Inside these bays, what you can do here is you can insert your hard disk and you can store, you can connect the hard disk to the servers. So this is how your storage SAN base will be looking like. Now these are also require the maintenance. So every equipment require the maintenance. Who has to do the maintenance? Obviously the storage admins has to do the maintenance. The storage admins has to monitor the storage devices. If there is any disconnection of the storage device, if there is any what I can say, if the hard disk is full, the hard disk has to be replaced. So everything has to be monitored and maintained by the storage admins only. Now, these are all the things has to be done manually if the data center is in on-premises, if the servers are on the on-premises. So just think how much burden will be there on the employees and as well as how much burden will be there on the company, so that they have to recruit the employees, they have to work with the employees for all this maintenance and monitoring things. So to overcome all these problems, to overcome all these on-premises problems, hope you understand whatever the on-premises problem that you are going to get. Did you guys get the problems? So to overcome all these problems, we are moving towards a particular service, and that service is called as a cloud service. In the cloud service, you don't need to worry about the physical servers. You don't need to worry about the networking. You don't need to worry about the storage. Everything can be maintained by the cloud infrastructure or else cloud service providers only. These three, what I can say, physical servers, networking, storage, these three are maintained by the service providers only. So you don't need to worry about these services. You have to worry about your applications, you have to worry about your virtual machines, but you don't need to worry about the networking, you don't need to worry about the storage configuration. So here I introduce you to the cloud. So what is meant by cloud and what are the different types of cloud service providers that we are having and how we can configure the cloud and all the things we will discuss in the next class. But as of now, did you guys got the point what we have to discuss and what are the problems that we are encountered when we are installing our servers on the on-premises, and how we have to, what are the different servers that are available and what is meant by virtualization? These are the topics that we have discussed today. The next class I will be introducing you to the cloud. So did you guys got the clarity? Any doubts here?
Yes,
yeah, go on.
I have a few questions. So basically what I understood, to overcome the limitation of on-premises, we have introduced cloud, right?
Not only for the overcoming of the limitations, but also for ease of accessibilities, for ease of application deployments and all the things, we are entering into the cloud.
So those things have a limitation if we go the conventional way, that is what on-premises, right?
Yes.
Okay. And another thing is, you say in cloud, physical storage and networking, those are already, you don't need to worry about that. Okay, those are already configured, right?
Yes.
So my question is, this physical storage and networking, these things, who configured? Means what I'm trying to say, we need to configure accordingly our requirement, or is this configured by default? And also
backend configuration, you don't need to worry about that. Networking cables, switches, routers, physical servers, racks, these are all not your headache. These are all the headaches of the service providers, cloud service providers. What is your headache? How my virtual machine, how I have to deploy the server, virtual server, and how I have to install my application inside the virtual server, and how I have to run the application. This is the headache for you. Not, you don't need to worry about the physical equipment. That everything can be handled by the service provider itself. Got the point?
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Bharat, we will discuss about the real-time scenarios once we are entering into the concepts. We are still in the demos and we are still in the introduction. So once we enter into the concept, we will discuss about all the concepts.
Okay.
Yep. Queries, guys, questions? Anybody want to ask any question? You can ask me the questions right now. Last 5 minutes open for your questionnaires.
So why should we go for AWS? Why not Azure?
In the last class only, I have given you the clarity. Any cloud you can move. I am not compiling you to learn the AWS, or else you have to learn Azure. It is completely the company requirement and as well as the client requirement. If you are pretty familiar with AWS, you can go with the AWS. Why only AWS? Why can't I go for Azure? You can go for the Azure also. Both are the similar service providers only. Either you can go for any cloud, either you can go for AWS or else you can go for the Azure. But the accessibility towards AWS is pretty simple compared to the Azure. So that is the reason why we are moving for the AWS. So the accessibility and the access of the resources, access of the services will be very similar, very easy for us rather than the Azure. So that is the reason why we are going for the AWS. And so many have this imagination that Azure is only for the Windows servers. Azure, we can deploy the Linux, you can deploy Unix, any sort of servers. In Azure also, we can do whatever the things that we are doing in the AWS, the same things we can do in the Azure. But comparatively, it is easy in the AWS compared to the Azure. The API will be easy for us.
Means from development side it is easier, but I got to learn from some business perspective that from client perspective Azure is better than AWS. Is it the case or some
In
lack
the
of
same
business?
client perspective, I can say that majority, if Azure is easy in the client perspective, why majority number of outsiders or else US companies, UK companies, and if you see the UK market right now, there are huge openings for AWS.
Yes, Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. So it completely depends upon the requirement, client requirement, whatever the cloud that they want, you have to understand. So that is the reason I said you that both are important. I will not say that AWS is alone important. Both are important for your client perspective. Got the point?
Yes, I am a database person, so wanted to understand it that way as well. Because for me, Azure is not going to help much, I guess. AWS having database related tools also more than Azure.
Azure is also have the same database tools. Whatever the tools that AWS is having, the same is with the Azure also. I'm not supporting Azure or else I'm not supporting AWS. So whatever the cloud that you are using, any cloud will have the similar tools only. I will not say that the same tools, but they will have the similar tools. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi Chaitanya.
Hi, Venkat.
It's not more of a technical, so to understand some perspective. So
Sure.
first we want to understand your perspective, like you're doing Azure and AWS, I guess. So what is your base skill so that we can correlate? Let's say being from a dev side, how I can see cloud or
My complete skill set is I am an administrator. First of all, I am a system administrator. I worked as a Windows system administrator. And later on, I have moved to the cloud, like AWS cloud computing. So I worked as a cloud practitioner and then I worked as a cloud associate. Okay. So I am completely into AWS. I guess, of course, I am into, so here I have to say I am not partial towards AWS, but I can correlate both the clouds. Either it might be Azure or else it might be AWS. So majority of the time I am very good. I am familiar with the complete AWS terminologies and AWS technologies. Getting the point. But sometimes you might have, or else I might be working, or else I worked in the Azure environment also. So where I have worked for the virtual machines. I have nowadays the entire Azure portal has been changed. But whenever I am working previously, it is very simpler for me in the Azure. But when I come back to the AWS portals are also getting changed, and some of the new features are introduced into the AWS. So I want, as per the IT requirements, now when you go outside the IT companies, so majority number of the companies are requesting the candidates to have the knowledge in AWS. Okay, so that's the reason why I am giving training only on AWS. Getting the point here.
Yep.
I hope that you got your answer. So my complete profile is, first of all, I started as a system engineer, where I used to work for the desktop, and later on I have moved to the system administrator level 1, where I used to work for the server maintenance, and then level 2, and then after working for a few years, I have moved to the another domain, that is cloud domain, where I used to work for AWS. And later on, I worked sometime for Azure, and then I came back to the trainings. So that is what my profile is all about.
Yep, great, thank you.
Yeah.
So I have one question. Like,
Yes, Abhishek.
Yeah, as a solution architect, what is the responsibility of employee working in organization?
So the responsibilities are pretty simple. So first of all, whenever you join, you will be joining as an associate. You need to monitor, you need to maintain the servers. So nobody will ask you to configure the servers, install the servers. No company. So that is all the responsibility of the service architect, cloud architect. So who has to plan, and everything has to be done by the cloud architect itself. So you need to get minimum of 5 to 6 years of experience as a cloud associate. Once you get that, then you can be moved as a cloud architect, where you have to configure the servers. Now, as an associate, your main functionality, your main work is that you need to monitor the servers. You need to configure any services, like you need to create the IAM policies for the users. If at all, if there is a new user and he want to access the server, and if he is a development user, which type of policy I have to use, which type of permissions I have to use. So these are the responsibilities of your cloud service associate. Got the point here, Abhishek? Now your day-to-day work will be monitoring and management and providing the policies for the users. That's it. And if you are a cloud associate, but when you comes to the DevOps engineer, but since you have to learn DevOps and you have to work on the DevOps, you need to have basic understanding for the DevOps too. So as a DevOps engineer, it is your responsibility to maintain, to monitor all the tools, like how an application flow is there. Is there any problem with the servers? Is there any problem with the if you have to monitor, or else if you have to write a code, if you have to write some pipelining for the Jenkins and Kubernetes integration. So these are all the works for the DevOps engineer. I am integrating both. I am not saying learn for the cloud associate. I am integrating the DevOps into the cloud. Why? Because companies are requesting the candidates to have both knowledge. But once you get into this, if you are into the cloud associate, your main work is that you have to monitor the servers, you have to maintain the servers, and you have to write the you have to provide the permissions for the users. This is the main responsibility for a cloud associate. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Got the point?
So
yeah.
So even though anyone is having 7+ years of experience, but he wanted to switch to the AWS, then he has to work. Yeah, or he has to start with associate level, right? And
which
then
type of experience you are saying? Which experience?
Pure development, Java development.
Obviously, this is a new domain for him, so
Yeah,
he has to start from the scratch itself.
Okay.
You might be having 7+ years of experience. Which type of experience it is? It is development experience, right?
Yeah, pure development.
So if you are moving into the cloud environment or else DevOps environment, you will be treated as not as a fresher, but in the DevOps, you will be having some development tools like SonarQube, which will be helpful for monitoring code checking, and you will be having Maven, which will be helpful for you the building the environment. So you will not be considered as a fresher when you go for the DevOps side, but when you come to the infrastructure side, if I have to say, if you are going for the Docker or Kubernetes, and what I can say, Ansible and all the things, you will be considered as a fresher there, not in the development side. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we can expect the hike as per the market standard.
Yeah, you can expect.
Okay.
You can expect depending upon the market strategies or else market level, you can expect the hike. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Because here the added advantage, you need to understand, you are pretty similar, you are pretty familiar with the IT infra. If you are having an experience of 7 years, you are you are having a very good experience of IT. You don't have the experience regarding the infrastructure, so you are learning that infrastructure, you can expect the hike. There is no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi Chaitanya, Bharat here.
Hey Bharat, tell me.
Yeah, it's my plus class. So I have one doubt here. Like, I say around 3 to 4 years of experience. So will we get an AWS jobs as a fresher, or like we can show as a we have already worked?
Which type of experience you are
like
saying?
as an admin role, Chaitanya. Yeah.
You are having an admin, so you know how to configure the servers, what is meant by networking, and what is how servers can be configured on all the things, right? So you can put that experience and you can move into the company. You don't need to worry about that. And you
So here, if you learn this AWS, so can we show? I already worked at least 2 to 3 years in AWS platform. Can I show like that in this classes? So can we get some idea?
Yeah, you can get the knowledge minimum of 2 to 3 years of experience. You can apply for that if you are capable of doing so. Okay. So with the classes, you can get the knowledge. It's a practical oriented classes. So every example, every topic that you are learning, that will be practically. I will try to explain you in the practical manner.
Yeah, we'll get some real-time scenario after some sessions, or like during the session and doing the
every scenario is a real-time scenario. Everything, whatever we are discussing now, it's relatable to the real-time only. So if there is any communication, how we have to make the communication between the multiple VPCs, and what if there is any server that is deployed, how we can connect through the VPN, what is the VPN services, everything I will try to explain in the real-time scenarios itself. Based on that only, you will understand the concepts.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I am working as a QA automation engineer. So how this?
So last question, Chaitanya. Responsibility will be configuring the server, monitoring the server, installing the server. If we join as an associate, then this will be very easy if we complete this class. So we will be able to do complete those responsibility.
Of course, you can.
And even if we join as a DevOps, and if we complete the DevOps in
DevOps course. Yeah, you have to complete the DevOps course. Yeah.
Yeah, then also whatever responsibilities are there, those will be fulfilled by us very easily after the completion of these 2 courses.
If you complete the AWS and DevOps courses, then you can fulfill each and every requirement that is requested by the companies. But one more thing that I'm suggesting is that if you learn AWS and DevOps, 70% of your resume will get shortlisted, whatever the key skills that you are putting. So if I have to say, I can put, so as per my skill set, I can say I know the AWS, I know Azure, I know Kubernetes, I know Terraform, Docker, Ansible, and I can work on Jenkins, and I can work on wide varieties of tools, Git and all the things. Now, whenever I write all those things, let me complete. Whenever I write all those things, so here the main points that each and every company will be looking forward is that. So Terraform is the main thing. Infrastructure automation can be done with the Terraform. If I have the knowledge on Terraform, then 80% of my resume will get shortlisted. And Kubernetes, inclusion of Kubernetes, then there is no another reason that why I cannot get shortlisted for the interview. I have knowledge on AWS. Apart from if you are having any gaps in your, what I can say, in your career, apart from this, if you are having knowledge on AWS, yes, he is having cloud knowledge. You are having knowledge on Kubernetes, you are having knowledge on Terraform, and you are having knowledge on Docker and Ansible, and finally Jenkins. So he is having complete knowledge on the cloud infra. So no another way to deselect your resume. These are all the requirements. If you fulfill these requirements, then you can be selected for the interview process. And you have to crack, if you have to crack the interview, that completely depends upon your knowledge. Yes, Abhishek, do you got the clarity?
Yeah, got it.
Chaitanya, this is only AWS classes along with the DevOps also.
No, this is only AWS.
Okay. 45 days of a duration, daily 1 hour, right?
Daily 1.5 hour. I
Okay.
particularly cannot say 1 hour. It might be prolonged to the 1.5 hour also.
That's fine. That's just I'm asking. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think someone is asking a question.
Yes, I was asking, I am working as a software automation engineer, okay, QA automation engineer. So how this will help in my career? Just need your thought.
So you are working as an automation engineer. So if you want to automate your infrastructure, if you want to but completely this is relatable to the IT service infrastructure development resources, or else this whatever the course that you are working, or else that you are attending, this course is completely for IT infrastructure development. And if you want to automate that, so if you want to automate the infrastructure and all the things, you need to learn the DevOps. But for the basics of DevOps, you need to learn this AWS. Okay, so this course might be helpful for you. So I cannot say that every perspective will be helpful, but yes, some of the points might be helpful for you. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm taking this to add some skill in my resume, whether
Okay.
I'll get opportunity or not. That is my
Yes.
aim.
You can add some of the skill set in the resume also, no problem. And Akshay, are you trying to ask any question?
Yes. So I would like that the question has been cleared by someone else, might be Raman. That is the 1.5 hour duration, right? At the syllabus has been covered, that already been listed on the website.
Website is okay. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So hope everyone are pretty clear with the services and whatever the things that we are going to learn in the next part. Whenever we start the VPC, count 45 days from that session, not from these basic sessions. Okay. Yes. So that's it. Have a nice day. We'll meet in the next session and discuss more on remaining.
Chaitanya, one question.
Yeah. Go on.
So like you have said that when we start the VPC, then we need to count the 45 days from the course, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And if anything, like any doubts in between the session or after the session, when we do the like R&D or in our home, right? So how we can connect in the next session, or
in the next session you can ask.
In the next session we can ask, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
First couple of minutes is completely for the doubts, and the next I will go for the introduction, and last couple of minutes, or else I can say that 10 minutes is for the doubt session itself.
Okay.
And in between the topic also, I will ask you about the doubts. Yeah.
Okay. And anything like live project will be going
to AWS, you don't get any live projects. Don't expect live projects. The AWS is completely relatable to your server maintenance and all the things. No another person will provide the live project for AWS. Of course, if it is DevOps, then you can expect a live project. But in AWS, you don't expect any live projects.
Okay. So every topics will be teach using the AWS console or CLI, right? More.
Of course, completely AWS console will be taken.
Okay. And is there any operating system do we need to, like I have Ubuntu, so
that's more than enough. If you have any operating system, any computer with a valid operating system, that's more than enough. Yes, thanks, Venkat. We'll meet in the next session. So that's more than enough. Okay. Yep. Thank you. Okay, guys. We'll meet in the next session. Bye. For today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.